effective immediately. That's how it started. My name is Ethan Ward. I'm 48, and for 16 years I ran enterprise accounts at ArcLight Biosolutions. When the new operations director, Sloan Avery, said those two words to me in front of my team, I kept my hands flat on the conference table and answered, as evenly as I could. Then I hope Friday's Torkin review goes smoothly. You could have heard the carpet breathe. The people I'd hired, coached, and promoted, people who saved launches at 2 a.m., who learned foreign time zones by heart and could translate regulatory gobbledygook into humans stared very hard at their notepads. Sloan, 31, high-gloss resume, 0 days in biotech, narrowed her eyes like I'd spoken a different language. "What do you mean?" she asked. "You'll figure it out," I said, and walked to my office. 2 boxes, 16 years, 2 boxes. Photos from kickoffs that turned into friendships. A plaque from a client who called me the person we dial when a quarter is on fire. The mug my daughter Lena painted in kindergarten dad in wobbly stars. Sloan hovered in the doorway, trying to sound casual and not desperate. "Ethan, about Torkin, not my project anymore," I said, taping a seam shut. She left. My team came by in little waves, quiet, angry eyes, quick handshakes, the kinds of goodbyes that feel like a fire drill for real life. Naomi, my senior analyst, stood the longest. "This isn't right." "It's business," I told her, and we both knew that line was a bandage on a broken bone. I'd seen the writing weeks earlier. Since the day Sloan landed, she booked status meetings that mysteriously didn't include me, corrected me in front of customers on details she'd skimmed from a brief, and told corporate that my relationship-heavy style couldn't scale. I didn't argue. I wrote everything down. Time, date, what she changed, who it hurt. And I did what account people with scar tissue do. I prepared for worst-case scenarios. There's a quiet skill you learn when you're responsible for revenue. You know which bridges can hold and which creak in a crosswind. I loaded the boxes into my truck and drove home. Maya, my wife, handed me coffee before I said a word. How bad? Manageable. That night I sat at the kitchen table staring at those boxes and realized I wasn't angry or sad. I was sharp. Sloan had made a mistake she wouldn't recognize until 10 a.m. Friday, when Torkin Dynamics asked where the calibration demo was, the one only I knew how to run. I joined ArcLight right out of college, when it was 30 people, 2 leased freezers, and a faith-based payroll. The founder, Harold Keene, liked to say he hired for appetite and taught the rest. I learned the lab, the regs, and the weird physics of boardrooms. By 32, I was the person procurement chief CC'd when they needed truth and delivery dates in the same sentence. When 2009 crushed budgets, it didn't crush us because our clients trusted my phone number. Maya understood the miles and midnight calls. She raised Lena while I built a team that kept 60-odd families paid. Then Harold retired, and his son, Damien, brought in consultants who turned people into boxes on a slide. Sloan came from that world 6-month stints, patent leather confidence, and a talent for saying optimize, like it solved something. The first week she interrupted a validation review to suggest a brand palette change. The second week, she reorganized our file system and broke the naming conventions that let my team find things without thinking. The third week, she started booking one-on-ones with my biggest accounts to assess satisfaction. 3 Mondays ago, I came in early and heard her telling corporate, "Ethan's approach is legacy. Clients like him, but we can achieve similar results with half the overhead." Half the overhead meant half my people, Naomi, who could translate regulatory into English, and Wei, who taught himself enough Korean to stop using interpreters with our sole partner. I thought about confronting her. Instead, I kept building the Torkin plan. Torkin was our biggest swing of the year, a 28 million instrument rollout across 3 sites with nasty edge cases nobody wanted to own. I'd spent 8 months learning their idiosyncrasies. Their CTO, Dr. Kira Patel, hated slide decks and wanted a live calibration run with the engineer who designed the method. Their head of procurement signed nothing that didn't map requirements to SOPs line by line. Their implementation team tracked lot numbers on paper because an overdue LIMS upgrade kept eating metadata. Sloan knew the date and nothing else. To her, a presentation was a deck and a smile. To Torkin, a presentation was proof you knew how their failure alarms sounded. "She fired you to look decisive," Maya said that night, "and Friday will show whether she understands what you actually do." I slept like before a race. Not anxious, just coiled. At 2 a.m., Maya found me at the table with my laptop. "You're planning. Just taking the training wheels off." Sloan left 3 voicemails asking where the Torkin package lived, and could I be a team player. I answered none. I wasn't a team member anymore. That's when it hit me. She hadn't just fired a person. She'd deleted 16 years of institutional memory. The Torkin plan wasn't a stack of files. It was knowing Kira preferred printed schematics to flowcharts, that she liked to pace while she asked questions, that her patience evaporated when someone read bullet points to her. It was knowing their project manager kept a private list of red flag words she considered sales fluff, and if you said synergy, she'd stop listening for the rest of the call. It was knowing who to text when a crate sat on a runway. I opened my calendar. Torkin at 10:00 Friday. By 10:20, Sloan would be in Damien's glass office trying to explain why the account we'd bragged about at the last all-hands had walked out 20 minutes early. At 9:41 a.m. Friday, I was at a downtown cafe, second coffee cooling, when my phone lit up. Sloan, voicemail. Sloan, voicemail. By 10:15, she had called 7 times. At 10:18, Naomi called. "They're here. Sloan is pale. Kira asked for you by name and for the calibration flow you promised." "It's on the system," I said. "She says it isn't." "Project folder Torkin implementation plan validation," I said, though I knew exactly what she'd find. Silence. "Ethan, that directory has templates and contact sheets. Where's the spec?" "In a blue notebook," I said. "On my desk for 10 years. "The one you took home?" "Correct." Naomi exhaled. "They're asking for you again." "Wish I could help." At 10:42, Damien called. "Ethan, come in. Miscommunication. We need to put a united front." "No miscommunication," I said. "You ended my employment yesterday. I can't represent you as a consultant without a contract. Name your fee." "I'm not available," I said, which was true. I had a video interview at 2 with Kestrel Bio, and their VP had personally forwarded my resume to the CEO an hour after I sent it. At 11:30, Naomi texted, "Torkin left, gave Sloan 20 minutes, asked for the calibration run. She offered a deck. They thanked us and said they'll reassess." At noon, Sloan called again. I answered. "You torpedoed this," she said. "You hid information." "I took my personal notebooks and family photos home," I said. "Everything official lives on ArcLight servers. You know how this works." "I know I was terminated without cause," I said. "ArcLight has no claim to my after-employment labor." She hung up. 10 minutes later, security called demanding I return company notebooks. I told them to read my offer letter. Personally purchased materials remained personal. At 1:30, Maya called laughing. Lena just sent me Sloane's LinkedIn. She posted a word salad about exciting restructuring. Underneath it, 3 of your clients asking where you went. Word moves at light speed through biotech procurement. By 3 o'clock, after a promising call with Kestrel, I knew what to call this situation. Not sabotage. Sabotage implies action. I had simply left with my know-how when shown the door. Sloane chose not to learn how the department actually worked. She chose to remove the person who could walk into a lab and be trusted with a $28 million decision. Saturday morning, Wei called from our APAC team. I should have said this earlier, he began. Sloane's been calling international accounts for background, asking about renewal timing and pricing models. Stuff she should learn internally. She told me to send original client emails for a quality review. I refused and pointed to the CRM. A cold square settled under my sternum. She was building a case I hoarded information, I said. Probably, Wei said. Also, after Torkin left, she held an emergency stand-up and blamed you. Naomi read the room the other way. She reminded everyone you'd offered to cross-train her month 1. Sloane said she preferred fresh eyes. I remembered that weekend 3 months earlier. 90 slides of client preferences, compliance quirks, error ranges, who to call when something smoked-handed back with a smile and the line, relationship management isn't scalable. We need programmatic touch points. What's morale? I asked. Like a lab freezer that beeped at 3 a.m. and no one has the code, he said. All hands Monday. Damien's bringing consultants to evaluate efficiency. Efficiency is the word people throw at relationships when they can't see past a quarter. Monday, I put on a charcoal suit and drove to Kestrel's glass building by the river. The interview wasn't hard. It felt like finishing sentences we all knew. By lunch, I had an offer. Senior Director of Enterprise Accounts, 25% bump, options, and a signing bonus that would cover a year of Lena's tuition. I accepted in the lobby. It wasn't the money. It was the air. Kestrel was growing on purpose and needed someone who understood that repeat business is won in the minutes between meetings. Naomi texted, ArcLight stock down 3 points. Torkin rumor mill. Not surprising. In this industry, one public stumble turns into a risk memo in 3 other companies by dinner. Tuesday, the City Business Journal ran a piece. Torkin selects Kestrel Bio for multi-site sensor rollout. The photo showed Kira shaking hands with Kestrel's CEO, and I'll admit, I stared at that photo longer than you're supposed to stare at a JPEG. That afternoon, Patricia Holloway, Kestrel's COO, called. Welcome aboard, she said. Also, we've been considering a regulated markets consulting arm. We'll need someone with relationships and scar tissue to lead it. I thought of Naomi's regulatory brain and how Sloane had passed her over. I might know a person. Wednesday, Wei called. Update. Damien terminated Sloane. Effective immediately. The floor applauded silently. How's everyone? Relieved and exhausted. Restructuring is a virus. Once it starts, the walls move. You happy there? Long pause. No. Kestrel is expanding. International business development. Mandarin and Korean welcome, I said. You serious? I start Monday. If you're interested, I'll make introductions. Friday. I met Naomi at the same cafe where I'd ignored Sloane's calls. Founding Director of Regulated Markets Consulting, I said, sliding the proposal across. Autonomy, resources, sane leadership. She blinked twice, then laughed the first laugh I'd heard from her in weeks. Damien offered me your old seat yesterday, she said. Head of Client Relations. Are you taking it? She looked at the ceiling like it held an answer. I was. Then you walked in. ArcLight will rebuild, I said. They'll hire clever people and make decks about lessons learned. It'll take years and be a different company by the time it works. Or you can help build something from scratch the right way. She looked down at the offer again, then nodded. When do I start? By the following week, Kestrel had 3 more employees who used to wear ArcLight badges, not through rating, through gravity. We weren't running from something. We were running toward it. Sloan had accidentally taught all of us the difference between managing and leading. Now we had the keys to prove it. 3 months later, I sat in a conference room with Kestrel's executive team, reading a dashboard that didn't feel real. Consulting revenue up 200%. International contracts up 150. Client satisfaction hitting highs I'd only seen in case studies. The torsion implementation alone spawned 5 inbound RFPs, Patricia said. Naomi, across the table with a director badge that should have been hers years ago, added, regulatory clearances cleared 6 weeks ahead of forecast. When clients see that, they copy each other. Wei joined from Seoul at 3 a.m. his time. 3 new hospital systems next quarter. We're ahead of capacity. After the meeting, Patricia pulled me aside. One more thing. Our largest prospect is Hollowgate Pharma. They want a partner to fix a messy validation that's been chewing budgets for a year. Their COO asked for the person who saved Torkin. I told him that person would be on the plane tomorrow. I flew out the next morning. Hollowgate was a perfect storm legacy equipment, conflicting SOPs across sites, a validation plan designed by committee. Their teams were bright and tired, and 1 week from mutiny. I did what I always did. Listened until they ran out of breath, found the person who actually knew how the line behaved at 2 a.m., and got 2 rival departments to sign a single sheet of paper that said which failures mattered. On day 3, standing over a humming instrument with an engineer named Priya and a tech named Jorge, I could feel the room exhale when the error band finally behaved. It wasn't magic. It was muscle memory and respect. On the flight home, I thought about Sloan, about the difference between reading a spec and knowing which screw strips first. Karma doesn't always wear neon. Sometimes it wears a lab coat and a tired smile. The next quarter, Hollowgate signed a multi-year agreement with Kestrel that paid for our new division twice over. Patricia called it the quiet miracle. I called it Tuesday. That afternoon, an unexpected email arrived. Damien. Coffee? We met at the same cafe because irony enjoys schedules. Damien looked older by a decade that had lasted 6 months. I owe you an apology, he said without looking up. I believed a story about efficiency that wasn't true. How's ArcLight? Alive, he said. Barely. We lost 4 major accounts after Torkin, laid off 15. The board is restless. He stirred his coffee like it kept time. Sloan cost us more than deals. She cost us memory. You can rebuild memory, I said. Not the same memory, he replied. He cleared his throat. Would you come back? I can put you in Sloan's role, VP of Operations, full authority to fix what I broke. Name your number. I'm happy at Kestrel. Double. It's not about money. He leaned back. Then what? Trust, I said. You hired leadership that believed relationships are fluff and experience is a line item. That was your call. I can't insure against you making it again. He nodded like a man reading a verdict he'd expected. He left his coffee half full and walked out. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt pity. The expensive kind that arrives after a lesson you can't refund. Life got busy in the best way. Maya said I started sleeping like someone had put my bones back in. Lena came home for a weekend and asked if she could shadow my team for a day as a class project. She watched Naomi explain to a client why no saved them 6 months, and she watched Wei negotiate a holiday shipment around a typhoon with 3 text messages and a favor he'd earned 2 years earlier. That night, over pasta, she said, "Dad, I used to think business was people arguing in suits. It's actually people remembering what other people need." Out of the mouths of undergrads. 6 months to the day after my termination, Kestrel announced the acquisition of 3 boutique consultancies, making our fledgling division the largest independent regulated markets practice in the region. They named me SVP of Strategic Development. The Business Journal ran a photo of our team with a paragraph noting that I had previously led enterprise accounts at ArcLight prior to its recent contraction. Sloane's LinkedIn said she'd taken a role at a Denver startup. Her headline touted organizational transformation. It didn't mention Torcan. A friend at a headhunter firm told me that startup folded 8 months later. The market is a colder teacher than a boardroom. The transformation became a graduate school module about what happens when you confuse decks with trust. A year rolled by. We had our share of scrapes and audit surprise, a supplier hiccup, a site that decided to renovate mid-validation, but we handled them the old-fashioned way, by telling the truth early and bringing donuts. Then one Thursday, Naomi walked into my office with a look I knew. "You need to see this," she said, and dropped a thin folder on my desk. Inside, a formal RFP from ArcLight. They wanted to outsource validation for a new device. The budget was healthy. The timeline was desperate. Patricia asked if pitching them would feel strange. It would, I said, but not wrong. We responded like we would to any company. Clean plan, honest risks, real names of the people who do the work. 2 weeks later, ArcLight awarded the project to Kestrel. Damien signed the statement of work. It wasn't revenge. It was gravity doing what gravity does. On kickoff day, I walked into a conference room with 4 Kestrel engineers and a stack of fresh notebooks. Through the glass, I saw the floor where I used to keep my coffee. On the whiteboard, someone had written a quote I'd said years ago and forgotten. "Trust saves hours." I looked around the table. Naomi, way on the screen. 2 young analysts taking notes so fast their pens squeaked, and felt something I hadn't felt since Harold's era. Not pride. Belonging. The project went smoothly because we let it be ordinary. When a sensor line drifted, Jorge from Halbrecht called to loan us a jig his team had built from spare parts. When a shipment got stuck in customs, Wade texted a contact and then sent the team a photo of the crates on a truck with the caption, "Border agents love baklava." When procurement tried to slip in a scope change, Naomi said no, with a paragraph that made them thank her. At Go Live, Damien shook my hand and said, "We should have trusted this work earlier." I didn't say anything. Some truths don't need the extra weight of words. Last week, Lena called from campus. "Dad, my operations prof covered a case study called the ArcLight Mistake." I raised my hand. "What did you say?" "That my dad taught me the best revenge is living well and building right." Maya smiled when I told her. "You couldn't have scripted it better," she said. "I didn't script it," I said. "I just stopped cushioning other people from their choices." On my way to the car that evening, I passed our wall of little framed thank yous the notes clients send when you make their fire drills boring. One from Torcan caught my eye. 3 words in Kira's sharp handwriting. "You made time." I thought about those 2 words Sloane had said to me a lifetime ago, effective immediately, and how immediate things had felt that day, as if a single decision could erase 16 years. It turns out time doesn't erase the right things. It sets them. So here's what I learned the long way. Relationships are not a luxury line item. They're the operating system. Institutional knowledge isn't nostalgia. It's the manual nobody bothered to write. And character isn't a speech. It's the quiet choice to show up prepared when no deck can save you. Sloan taught me that, without meaning to. Damien paid for that lesson with stock price and sleep. And I got my life back. Sometimes the most satisfying victories are the ones where you never raise your voice. You just keep your promises, hire good people, and let gravity tidy up the mess.